Welcome to Product of Things. I'm very happy that you join us this evening. My name is Maria Cassis. I'm the founder of Product of Things. Before we'll dive in with our amazing, insightful, crazy interesting event for today, I'll tell you a little bit about Product of Things, about myself, why we're here, and then we're going to have a very special guest with a very special and interesting and relevant lecture for you all, and that's it. So my name is Maria Cassis. I founded Product of Things on August 2016, just because I think there is a need. I've been very fortunate to sit at all sides of the table when it comes to hardware product management and creating of new products. I co-founded my own startup in the 3D printing domain industry. I spent a few years as a consultant of product management for a few companies in Israel and abroad, and I spent 2 years in the VC world. And there was one thing that kept make my life miserable and hard, and it was hardware.
Because it's hard.
Because it's so hard, exactly. It's so hard to come with the right ideas, with the great ideas, but it's even harder to get it happen. Because when we talk about hardware, it's go big or go home. It's either you're in and you make it, or you just don't. And this is why I created this, not only community, a guild, maybe your product management course or class that you never had. And when we talk about hardware, there is a need, a big need. And I'm happy for all of you to join me and actually showing that there is a need. It's kind of amazing. So what is planned for us? We meet once a month for a meetup or for another kind of like workshop or event. We sometimes host delegations from abroad, like we had last week. And we try to provide value to this community of creators in Israel and Tel Aviv. So what is planned? No sales pitch. It's just a simple platform for knowledge sharing. When you want to learn and you ask others that have been there before you to share their knowledge and to make your life a little less hard. More hardware, less hard. So this is about Product of Things. Feel free to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, SlideShare, Twitter, Meetup. I think this is all. Just feel free to be a part of the community. I would love to see you come more and more. It's very important that we will act as a community, right? On Facebook, if someone is asking a question about how to make the product they make better, please answer. This is our only way, not only to survive, but to get better in what we do. It's a very, very hard domain. So tonight, we have a very special meetup. Because one of the struggles of creating a hardware product is the production side. Now, you can do it in Israel or in any other place in the world on the planet, but it's hard. Not only because the process is challenging, but also because as a startup, your funds are limited. Your time is limited. And every mistake is going to cost you not only money, but your time. And then you maybe think about doing it in China, because you've heard this may be a good solution for you. But if you are not Chinese, you may find it difficult. And this is why we're all here tonight. We're gonna learn from Bay how to do it the right way. What are the mistakes that we should avoid? Thank you, Bay Mclaughlin, from Brink.io, co-founder and COO of Brink.io. An amazing accelerator, but way more than an accelerator. When you're there, when you spend your life in Hong Kong, in China, you realize that the game is challenging. So thank you, Bay, for joining us this evening. Share from your knowledge. It's going to be so insightful. It's going to be so interesting because it's simply going to give us all tools for bringing our idea into the process of creation and manufacturing, and hopefully to the hands of many, many customers. So thank you all for joining us this evening. This is Product of Things. Bay, the stage is yours.
Thank you very much. A little bit about myself. Was in San Francisco for 8.5 years, worked at Apple for 6 years, had a company I lost, company I sold. I've consulted with VCs. I started the startup evangelism and venture capital channel at Apple. So if you've heard of a tech company in the Bay Area or a VC, I promise you they're my customer, my friend, or my mentor. I would love to guess that name with you because I guarantee you I know them. So I have been all over. I lived in Germany, Australia, East Coast, West Coast, and I've now been in Hong Kong and China for 3.5 years. So why in the hell am I in China? Because IoT is going to be the biggest thing in the entire world. I'll just go ahead and make a little projection here. The IoT movement is going to make the mobile device movement, which is propping up the most valuable company in the world, Apple, is going to look negligible. It will look so small when we zoom out in 20, 30 years from now. It's going to be amazing how big this trend is going to be. So let me just walk you through, forget the lights and the screen here. This is the homepage, but this is our slogan internally. We are truly a lifecycle platform, and you're going to see that quite quickly. We realize that just doing one stage of the hardware lifecycle is not good enough. Because let's say you have a great acceleration program, fantastic, now what? And then you get it manufactured, now what? Hardware problems don't disappear, they just change. So we've continued to evolve since we started 3 years ago and create new programs and services because we want to be a part of the entire life cycle. So forget the stats. I mean, just know we've worked with a bunch of teams. We've launched a bunch of products. The VC dollars at the bottom, having been from the Valley, I'm just going to tell you, VC dollars raised is not a proxy for success. It's bullshit. Got it? You need money. Doesn't matter where it comes from. Doesn't have to be VCs. And you just need to get your product made and you need to build your company. So it might be VCs, might be loans, might be crowdfunding for equity, might be borrowing money, might be angels, whatever it is, you just got to make it happen. So those numbers keep going up. I just don't care, being honest. We also have accelerator programs that are open now. We can talk about that later. These are some of the teams. Logos, logos, logos. Over half our investments are in health technologies, not by design, just because. I think it's interesting, makes sense, it's important. If you want to make the world a better place, you're not alive to see it, probably doesn't make a lot of sense. We also have a drone accelerator. That was completely random. We decided that we had a program partner in Barcelona. They had a really interesting angle to build a drone program. They said, sure, why not? We hired an aerospace engineer, said, let's do this. And then here we are later having run the program. We're now doing more of them because it's really awesome. Drones are pretty badass. We're super into it. Would love to talk more about that later. Services and hardware, like chips, all the way to actually just building palm plantation surveillance, plane surveillance, and prediction of how quickly planes can take back off, noting what's been broken since they landed or taken off at the last airport, et cetera, et cetera. You can always go to this link, /products on our website if you're interested. We always keep this up to date, and it's like a meta index that you can look and figure out where the companies are from, who's shipping, what type of product category they're in, ... So we're trying to keep that up to date as often as possible. You'll also see that we have everything from offline products like face masks. That's crazy, $75 US face mask. I know it sounds crazy. However, it's doing super well in China because they are sucks in Beijing and Shanghai. So surprisingly doing well. And you're going to understand why it's not just connected products. Because our accelerators invest in companies that actually need to have the data be valuable. So the data, when you're being an investor, has to matter. Guess what? Not every company needs to have connection. IoT does, but not necessarily for every single business product. We have plenty of companies that just need to make physical products that also just make money. Doesn't suck. I'm going to tell you a funny story in a minute of how much money you can make when you don't worry about stressing out being a VC-backed unicorn. So these are services that our studio, which is our service arm, this is what we offer. I've talked to a few of you today already during office hours. These things hurt companies. We wanted to make sure that China sucks less because we've been in China a long time. I'll show you. So the reason I bring these up is these are services that I know you have to figure out, whether you work with us or by yourself or with someone else. You just got to figure this stuff out. So we'll continue to evolve based on what you tell us. If you have a problem, we're going to try to solve it. It's very simple. So most of you will probably care about looking at your bill of materials. I promise that a lot of you that are using DigiKey, Mouser, Alibaba, ... Those are not the real prices, just so you know. Manufacturing, obviously you can do manufacturing locally. There's only two real ways to do manufacturing. One way is do it yourself locally. That's expensive. You can go to China, do it yourself, fuck it up, also expensive. Or you can partner with someone that knows what they're doing and it'll be a little less than expensive, but it's never cheap. So make sure you understand manufacturing by yourself, unless you've done it before. We even have guys in our portfolio, ex-Amazon hardware, having shipped 8 versions of the Kindle, still using us. Because doing it yourself is tough. Now, Rng Management is probably the part people miss the most. So this is the part where you say, I'm ready to go to China, or I'm ready to manufacture. Unless you have the 13 files that you need to do an RFQ process, you're not ready. And that's okay. You are where you are. That's it. Don't stress out about it. We just want to help fill in those gaps. Because you can't go and shouldn't go talk to a factory without the right information. And we're going to talk about that today. Last piece, free tool. I talked about this a little bit earlier in office hours. Who here thinks that you don't have to worry about cash flow building a hardware company? Cool. So obviously trick question. So we have a tool we've designed and are giving away for free to the entire community. So it's already, these logos are out of date, there's already more. This tool is supported by a lot of IoT accelerators because we don't want you just to apply to ours, apply to all of them. Also, investors, that's out of date. Need to put more up. Other VCs that invest in hardware that are okay in using this tool. So it looks like this. These are all the nice, fun costs you have to think about as a hardware founder. I know it's scary. I got it. So this is why we created the tool. It's one of our investment bankers who spent her 12 years learning about all these things. We've integrated every single product, went through all the different VCs, all these other programs to make sure this is as tight as it can be. It shows you cash flow timing over cash flow needs for over time, so you actually know when you're about to run out of money. You can just check it out, brink.io/cash. It's free. It's a plugin. Already in 10 days, we have 100 hardware companies on it. So it matters. Take a look. It's free. Would love to get your feedback. This is the main point of this entire talk is manufacturing and sourcing in China. So I need to ask you guys something now that you know about us. Raise your hands. Who is currently building a hardware company? Awesome. Down. Who wants to build a hardware company but it's not yet? Down. Who's already manufactured at scale a hardware product? Okay, down. Out of those people in China? Oh, nice. Okay, hands down. And then who has done any sort of like lower scale manufacturing though, but has produced physical products before? All right, I'm gonna keep going. I'm liking this. All right, so who's in the community that supports hardware founders, like product designers, developers, anyone else?
They're
Okay.
all here.
I'm just making sure. I don't know. I want to make sure because these people are people you should be talking to. They know how to do this. What else should we do? Investors? A couple? Perfect. Not enough, clearly. So I gotta get that community up. Okay. The reason I ask is that this topic, if you are not interested, like I will not take offense if you're like, oh my God, it's so boring. Like, and feel free to get up and get a drink and walk outside, no big deal. Like if you're into this topic, you need to know this information. If you're not interested in manufacturing, this will be boring super fast, I promise. So I will be as high energy as I can be, but this is tactical, right? You guys okay with that? Okay, cool. This is not meant to be like marketing. This is in the guts and this is the work. Okay, so we'll start with why in the hell China? Obviously, we know it's cheap in China. Got it. We also know that they're the best at replicating anything. Got it. We also know the entire supply chain. So like Americans that think that they're going to bring manufacturing back to America, bullshit. Anyone that thinks that they're going to take and bring all this new automation and bring it back to their front yard, probably, maybe, where you're going to get the components. That's right. Everyone's going to buy from China. You cannot beat the supply chain in China. Now, we might change who's putting the parts together. The assembly will probably be more robotics over time. Makes sense. But you still got to make the parts. And it's going to come from there. So no matter what you think, even if you don't think you're dealing with China, you're dealing with China. Or someone in your chain of command is dealing with China. And on the other side is the competition. Just for fun. Who here has been to China? All right, hands down. People that didn't raise their hand, who wants to go to China? All right, that's 100% almost. That's the best. Perfect. So the reason I think that's critical, and I'm glad that everyone raised their hand, is that if you're making a physical product, I would argue software, but I'm not going to do that now. So if you're making a physical product and you think that you are not competing with China, you're wrong. You are competing with China. Excuse me?
Say it again.
So if you're making a physical product and you think that someone in China or China is not your competition, you're wrong. If you're doing physical things, China is always and will always be your competition. It might not just be like they're making the iPhone and you're going to make a mobile phone. They are just going to work faster, stronger, better than most people. I'm not saying always smarter. Fair enough, good argument. But you're going to be dealing with them whether it's obvious to you or not. Cool? Good to know. Perfect. Now, why not China? Other side of that coin. If you're doing something low volume, very, very complicated, doesn't make a lot of sense. You probably know like high mix, low mix. Like, so if you're going to be something that's really, really complicated, like high-end robotics or something, you're still going to source the components from China, but probably makes sense to assemble locally. Like, doesn't make a lot of sense because it's not high volume and repetitive. All right, cool. So I heard this at the beginning, so I know you guys believe this. My joke here is very simple. Hardware is hard if you don't know anything about hardware. Just like, for me, flying a 747 would be fucking a nightmare. I wouldn't ever open your chest up and perform surgery on your heart because I don't know how to. So if you're starting a hardware company and no one on your entire team has any background or advisors or investors or accelerators, yeah, it's gonna be hard. But we've been making shit for centuries. People that know how to make physical things have no challenge making physical things. That's kind of it. Just like I'm not going to jump behind the wheel of the 747 and say, I got this, no problem, trust me. It's not how it works. So make sure you have people. Like, educate yourself like you are, but also find partners, find other co-founders, find advisors or mentors or product development shops, people that know this lights out. Partner with those people. So, anyone ever heard of this strategy? This is sort of the paradigm of the last 4 years, right? Where there's all these great campaigns that make a bunch of money and then never ship. So we're changing this. Obviously, that's not the case. It's more like this. So forget the details. Just know that that's a lot more steps than the first 3-step plan, which doesn't work. And there's a lot more than this. Our internal development plan is something like 1,400 steps. You just don't want to miss stuff, right? You don't get to do it again in hardware. You usually don't have the money. So this is, you can probably find similar, this is product development. This is 101 stuff. Like, you'll find every product development shop follow some similar thing to this. This is not unique to us. So I want to walk you through where we are. You figured out what you want to make. You want to validate, fine. But now you have some demand, some interest, some idea that you think people want. Now it's time to deal with this shit. We've got to make it, right? We got to source the products, the whole supply chain. We have to start, now that we know what the requirements are. Your users have told you, you've prototyped, you've tested, you've pre-sold, you have a pilot program, whatever. Like, people say they want this thing and you know what they want now. Cool, now we got to make it. Ready? We good? Okay, we got to start with sourcing. Let's get into this. I'm not going to do the bullet point by bullet point. I'm just going to start with all of it. You guys are smart enough to keep up. So we got to locate the factories. We have to figure out, are we going to go deal with the factories or use agents? We have to actually talk to the factories, vet them, and negotiate so we can engage. This is all the first chapter. Now, you guys have to ask me questions in real time, because I promise you, you will not remember your question by the time I get to the end of this. I'm going to hit you with so much content during this talk. You need to stop and just raise your hand right now if you have questions. Go ahead. We're gonna have a whole slide on that. Cool, perfect. Yep.
What does vetting factories mean?
Deciding which factory you want to choose, like validating or choosing. Anyone else? 3-part chapter: sourcing, actually manufacturing, and then shipping the product. That's what we're going through. Okay. So it's chapter 1. Ready to roll? Let's get into it. All right. Locating your factory. This is important. These are tools. Happy to send this out. We'll get it to the distro. These are things that you probably already know. Anyone use Alibaba? Perfect, fantastic. Problem with Alibaba, that information is not necessarily accurate. So next one is Panjiva. Who's heard of Panjiva? Yes, that's what I'm talking about. People that are in this game. So Panjiva is a really nice trick, because when you want to find out where your factories are, it's kind of nice, or where things are made, because this is the import-export platform for any product that goes to the United States. So if someone's importing across the border into the US, they have to declare where that stuff was made or sourced from. Kind of nice if you want to make, I don't know, like, maybe you're making a fitness platform and you have like connected weight systems or something. Like, oh, I wonder where the rubber plates are made. Gonna have to be on there. If any of your competitors are making it, it's gonna be there. And it's nice is that the US is a huge market for everyone, so generally speaking, it'll be there. Now, I'm not saying you're gonna find where Apple makes its stuff. They're pretty good at hiding stuff. But overall, this is a fantastic, it is paid, generally paid versus free. You get what you pay for, right? This is an interesting research platform for you if you're interested. So feel free to even, like, don't get me on camera, but just buy a license with all of your friends and just use it. So cool. Made in China, global sources, DHK. There's so many of these, but just recognize things that are free are generally going to be a little less organized, maybe not as curated, not validated. There's a lot of different platforms coming out now. Like, I'm not going to use their names because it would be mean, but there's a lot of other groups doing this kind of aggregation of suppliers thing. Think about this. When the numbers go up on an aggregated platform, the quality goes down, right? Because you know they're not validating that shit. So just grain of salt, right? Cool. This is a map you need to look up. Just Google it, Li and Feng factory map or something. It's out there. The reason I'm bringing this up is first tip and trick when you're locating the factory. You can do this on Alibaba right now. So when you look for, let's say, titanium products right here, so that's Shaanxi, and you're buying from Alibaba and you're like, oh, I'm looking for titanium, and it's coming up in Shanghai. First problem. If there's someone and you see their address and it's not in the cluster it's supposed to be, the nice part about China and central management as a government is that they choose where stuff goes. They say, this is titanium, this is electronics, this is rubber, and they pick the city, and the entire supply chain clumps in one location. This is furniture, this is whatever. So first tip and trick, look at the address and check this map. Make sure it's coming from the right region. So don't order stuff from a region that doesn't make sense. I promise you it'll be shit. It's gonna be a waste of your time. Cool? First tip and trick. Oh, it depends who you're using. That's a different strategy. We're coming up on that. So or you should, even if you have an agent, you should be second guessing. Let's just be honest. Always have to use your own thoughts. So this is a great map. You can check it out, Li and Feng, or just like Factory Maps China or something like that. You'll find this. It's all over the internet. All right, factories versus agents. Glad you asked. So pros and cons here. You want to have factory direct. Your goal is, I'm gonna have lower price, right? Because you have the direct communication. You actually know the decision maker. That's a pro. However, harder without the experience and the fact that you don't know how to deal with China. So having someone's still gonna be important. If you've never done it before, like you do learn this, right? It's not like some crazy topic that you don't learn after the first couple times. Like after you go through this crucible enough, you do learn how to deal with China. Like it's not like you'll never figure this out. But the first time's tough. On the other side with the agent, really happy, right? Really, really helpful to find the factories that fit your situation. You can give them the requirements or the criteria. Also, it helps to smooth out communications because you have one person versus potentially many. And you guys can read the rest, but this is really, really interesting. The end game, if you find a third party, us, whoever else, that can go full 360 and make sure you get the products at the end, like I want this, and they are a part of the whole process, and they give you 10,000 of these, very helpful versus, oh, well, I'm gonna help you find the factory, but then I'm not gonna QC it or I'm not gonna ship it. Try to find a one size fits all. It's better for your first run because you stitching together the pieces, which you can, not saying don't, but if you're doing that, it's taking a lot of time, and you have to ask yourself here, what's your benefit? Where's the value that you add in your system? So I'll get on my soapbox for 2 seconds on that topic. All of you that are founders, just for fun, all the guys that are people that raise their hands that they're founders, I'm gonna ask you to raise your hand again in 2 groups. First group, who's an engineering founder? Down. Who's a business founder? Okay, fantastic. So way more engineering founders raise their hands. Here's the problem. Because you're gonna wanna do the product. You're gonna wanna get your hands dirty. You're gonna wanna learn manufacturing and the making part and all the electronics and all that stuff. You're gonna want to do that. I have to be very honest. Like my iPhone, I worked at Apple 6 years. I love my iPhone. I still don't and will never give a fuck what's in my iPhone. Cool? You have to be really understanding of what the value is in your business. So there are certain products, I'm not saying engineering doesn't matter, of course it does, but you have to understand with the limited resources and time that you have where you spend your time. That's it. So if you're spending your time running around China like a crazy person, trying to learn the language and negotiation skills, like, of course, do whatever you want to do, your business. But just be honest with yourself about the time and the resources and where you add value, what your customer or what your business needs you to be doing, and where you spend that time. Cool? Up to you. Yep.
Just a caveat on the agent side, protect your interest always is not, you have to be very careful.
So you're, just to repeat for the video, so you're saying that the agents don't always protect your interests. I think you have to do your best. Obviously, that's not the case with everyone. This is your job. This is one of the things I always tell founders. I've had founders come to me in my studio say, okay, so what you're telling me is you're gonna guarantee that I'm gonna get 10,000 exactly the way I want. I go, whoa, 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 whoa. Let's step back a second. I'm not gonna guarantee you shit. You're the founder, it's your responsibility, good and bad. However, you pay someone to make it less risky and help be on your side. Last time I checked, Samsung still has phones that blow up. So I'm not taking that risk because stuff happens that you cannot control. But you want to have a feeling of trust. Like you have to do your best, you're 100% correct. But I think just make sure we always understand, because I think founders a lot of times, especially first-time hardware founders, they want to chuck the responsibility over the wall and be like, well, I worked with this product design firm, they're really famous. It should have gone better than it did. Okay, cool, so whose responsibility is that? It's not theirs. It really is always yours. Like as a hardware founder, there's no scapegoats. There's no way of getting out of this. You're taking all the pressure on your back because you think you're hardwired for this and you want to build the future of the physical world. All good, go for it. But you can't point the finger in hardware. It always comes back to you. So pros and cons, your choice. you obviously know my slant on this. I wouldn't have built a whole studio that helps do this if I didn't think there was value in it. Now, once you have this group, whether it's you or them doing it, you have to reach out to the factories. So let's go through this. Very, very basic. You are selling them and they are selling you. Cool? Two-way street. So you don't want to send a mass email with 50 factories CC'd saying, I want to make 10,000 watches. Who wants to talk to me? Doesn't make sense, right? Just like everything you do, you have to stand out. This is marketing 101. Not too early, think about this. When you reach out to a factory or whoever it might be, and you don't have your requirements figured out yet, why are they going to take you seriously? And if they do talk to you and figure out that you're not that far along in the process, you're going to be kind of irritated, right? Does anyone, just for guess, raise a hand, someone shout it out. What's the net profit margin on average of factories? Anybody?
5%?
Less?
3%.
Yeah, it's bad. So I'd say it's around 2 to 3%, right? It's really, really bad. So anytime factories are wasting time on things that don't yield, it's a risk to their business. And these are the big guys too. I'm sure you saw PCH had Beats, then Apple bought Beats, and what happened to PCH? 1,800 staff laid off, 65% layoffs the next month. You can't afford, you don't have the margin. So be careful and understand, like put yourself in their shoes and understand what their game is too. The first email, these are just some really basic things to go over. Again, happy to take photos, write down, whatever, but really simple. You want to make sure you're explaining where you're shipping, your title, which you're going to get into, what you want to make. MOQs is really important. So minimum order quantity, MOQ. You need to know what their MOQ is. Every single factory has one. So if you are seriously going to make 500 products, and that's all you could possibly afford, and their MOQ is 3,000, don't waste their time. Anyone heard of Goldilocks before? Is that like a thing that people in Israel know? No? Okay. So like it's the whole like not too hot, not too cold, but just right. That's how you're looking at factories. We always use the Goldilocks principle. It's you want to make sure that you're going to be big enough where they're interested. You're not too big, but you're also not too small. And that's a little bit of that salesmanship. There's a little bit of that marketing in the middle. Like, well, you're going to just get under the MOQ. Like MOQ is 3,000. You know you can do 1,500 or 2,000. The other 1,000's sales. Because you're kind of in the sweet spot. You're not 200. But also if a factory's high end, they can only do 20,000 pieces a month. And then you want to do 50,000, also a bad idea. You're going to hurt yourself and the relationship. Doesn't make sense. Just there's the porridge principle, the whatever you want to call it. Price, I want to talk about this really quickly. Do not reach out with price. Don't go right for the jugular and say, hey, can you make this for $25 a piece? Doesn't make sense. If it's a custom part, this is a conversation over time. However, on the flip side, I had a conversation with a team here this morning that is going to be using an ODM or a base tool or product that a factory's already made, and they just want to change it a little bit. No big deal. If you're going to take a board or a product or whatever it is, and you need it kind of 80% the same and you just need to change a little bit, you can start talking price in the first email, no problem. Because they're going to sell you quantity. They already know what it costs, so no big deal. But if it's custom, you need to wait to talk about price. If it's an ODM or white label product, no big deal. Go for price right away. Any questions here? Told you guys it's deep. Go ahead. Sure, of course. Perfect. So the question is, how bad is the language barrier? How much of an issue is the language barrier? A lot, but getting better. So for fun, who's ever used WeChat? Cool, down. Who's used WeChat in China? Less. Okay, cool. One more fun one. Who has a Union Pay bank account? Oh, there you go. Those are the real players. Have them open up WeChat and show you what it really looks like as a foreigner. So there's a whole other world of WeChat when you have a bank account attached. But the reason I'm asking is WeChat is one of the best translation platforms there are. It's embedded in WeChat. It's amazing. And I have a product shipping to me in 2 weeks. That's an earpiece, kind of like what I'm wearing from Apple, that translates in real time. We'll see. But either way, that technology barrier is going down. So hearing them and knowing the words they're saying, I think that'll eventually go away. However, understanding the culture is hard. That's your task. The language, you can find a translator, use WeChat, find these new earbuds or platforms that do this, like hearables. But the culture is the most important, not the language. I hope that makes sense from a differentiation. Cool. Number 4. Go ahead.
NDAs and stuff like
Ooh, perfect. Legal. I just wrote a blog post that's going out tomorrow about this. So how do you protect your IP in China? Do whatever you can get away with, just don't rely on it.
Paper doesn't mean shit in China.
That's right. You heard it from him first. So let me repeat that. Paper doesn't mean shit in China. Got it, camera? Perfect. Like that's literally, you're completely right. You also don't want to waste time defending this stuff. And so let me just zoom over really quickly and just, I know this is not what you want to hear, but if China's copying your products, that's a good sign. I know that sounds crazy. It's true. Imagine how many other things they can spend time making. If they care enough and think the product you're making is cool enough to copy, you're on to something. Like that's a good sign. And today, maybe not in the future, you will not see, I can promise you, I've never seen it ever, you'll never see a Chinese or Shanghai product show up next to your product at the Apple Store or Target or Best Buy or wherever your equivalent stores are. It's not how it works right now. They're making it for the local market there that's very price averse, the gray market in China. I'm not saying it's a good feeling to see your product when you go to the electronics market or it happens, search on Alibaba, you'll find some of my portfolio companies also not their product listed. Not a big deal. They're not actually competing for the mind share of your real customer right now. Although it doesn't feel good, it's not a big deal. Yep.
We were told that if you have a Chinese partner, then they won't screw him. If you don't, like, they have no problem with screwing us or people from the States, but as long as you have a Chinese partner, they won't screw him and won't copy your product.
Better one from the government also.
Okay. Oh yeah, so the idea is that if you have a Chinese partner, another Chinese person won't screw a Chinese person, but they don't mind screwing you. This is gonna be so fun in video, I can't wait. So I can't wait for the sound bites on Twitter, like people are like live typing this down. So cool, let me explain a nice little fun story for you because this has happened. Had a friend who went public, listed in China. Not bad, right? You have some friends when you went public in China. Cool? Same guy has known his partner, this dude, 16 years. He was speaking at his wedding. Gave a toast at his wedding. 2 years later, what happened? Screw him in a business deal. And literally, the guy's sitting there thinking, I spoke at your wedding. What are you talking about right now? And he's like, whoa, 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 whoa. He goes, don't be so personally. It's okay. Like it's not a personal thing. That was just a better deal. And this is, I mean, I know what you're saying. There are obviously hierarchies. Like if you're going to have someone like you said in the government, probably not going to do that because they can make you disappear. However, if you have just a normal business person, I would never, ever, ever trust that.
I don't trust business people anyhow.
Okay, engineering versus business, I love it.
But wait,
Okay,
there's a lot of pride in China in general.
true.
So that's the game that when you're working with factories, that's what you can use. Because an NDA doesn't mean shit. So there is a pride measure that you can play with.
So the question is about pride. This is gonna be very. We should do this over beers. We could talk about this forever. So I'm not. I would tell you this. There's not gonna ever be a black and white answer. Just like in Israel, everything's confusing, right? So it's not. China's the same way. I've seen so many parallels being in Israel the last 8 or 9 days to being in China. It's pretty similar. So I would say like don't think like I've got the silver bullet. It's gonna work. I don't think so.
You have experience in manufacturing several companies, several places and then combined?
So this is a tactic question. So can you actually manufacture in multiple factories and then make sure not any one group knows everything? That's one strategy. Another strategy is rely on the part that you're the best at, the software. Make sure that it has some sort of token or authorization that it can't actually turn on. This happens all the time. You'll see the exact same device get sold and then someone tries to turn it on and it doesn't work. That's good for you. That's the part you can defend. The question of using multiple factories is dependent on price and time. If you really have to and have the money and time to do that, I probably would. A little bit, like maybe not a bunch, but a few. That makes sense. Time and money, depends. Okay, we're covering a lot. We got to keep going. Good. So next one, vetting the factories. This is the porridge principle, right? We went over that. Not too big, not too small, right? And then just right. This is my favorite one. Lunch with the Laoban. Laoban means boss. If you are not talking to the boss, if you are not doing the following things, anyone's been in China will appreciate this. If you are not having tea with the Laoban, they're not taking you seriously. If you are not going to lunch with this huge lazy Susan and eating way too much food that a lot of things are weird you've never seen before, they're not taking you seriously. If you're not out at dinner, drinking, getting wasted, they're not taking you seriously. I just want to be honest about it. This is how it happens. If you are dealing with junior people, It's okay. Just recognize that you don't have much leverage. They're not taking you seriously, which is what we're going to talk about next, is how to make them take you seriously. Any kind of questions about this? This is pretty high level. Cool? And this is probably one important part. When you do choose your factory, try to make sure that they're going to be a factory that you can stay with for a couple of years. Don't go into that factory knowing that you're about to outgrow them in the next 6, 8, 12 months. It's a huge waste of your time and their time, because onboarding a new product is a lot of effort for both of you. So make sure that you have room to grow with them, but you don't want to take a factory like a tier 1, Flex, I've heard that today, Foxconn, Jabil, ... They don't care about you, just being honest. I love all of them. They're friends of mine. We know them. It won't work because they don't care about your volumes. You can get them. You can pay them. If you have the money, they will definitely take your business. Just recognize, and I can tell you from experience, like one of my mentors, anyone heard of Misfit or Sunny Vu, the wearable, $300 million exit? He's one of my mentors. He got burned by all the top 3. Every single one of them fucked something up for him. He had a lot of money, a lot of relationships, still didn't work. Be thoughtful. I always look at tier 3 to tier 1, or flip that around, tier 3, tier 2, tier 1. Tier 2 is just right for us. We use tier 2 all the time. Tier 3 means that you have to stitch it together yourself. It's a lot of people that do very small things, cheaper, lots of risk. Tier 1 is they do everything together, they'll handle all the risk, super expensive, you won't be a priority. Tier 2 is that middle, nicer. That's usually all of our factories are tier 2 factories. They're big enough to handle important work, but small enough that they'll take lower work and will grow with you. I can't explain how that looks. I'll just tell you one thing. When you've been to factories, you'll know it's a tier 3 factory, you'll know it's a tier 1 factory, and everything else is tier 2. So you'll know when you see it, I promise. There's no silver bullet there. All right, here we go, negotiation. So we need to find mutually beneficial working relationship. You are a team. Cool? Do not do what I see in America all the time, thinking that it's you versus them, that you're there to penny pinch them away with like every single penny or dollar, that they're there to screw you. If you don't go in with an open mind trying to meet them in the middle and be mutually respectful for what they're good at, and you want to understand what they need so you can also teach them what you need, you're going about this wrong. They are the most important partner at this stage in your business until you have leverage. And that's going to be a while for everyone. Always is. Even our teams, after 2 years, don't have a lot of leverage yet. They'll be coming up to it in another year or so, but they're not there yet. Really, really important to go in looking for a mutually beneficial working relationship. These are the dimensions. We already talked about MOQ, price. Let's talk about the other points. Inspection, warranties, etc. Who here's done these before? Awesome. So I'm going to grab you guys to talk for a second. So paper. Back to paper. So this is where paper does matter. Now, let's say something happens. Let's say you didn't define a certain requirement or yield or whatever it is. Something breaks. Whose fault is it? Who's going to pay for it? If it's not outlined and explicitly agreed to, it's very unlikely you're going to hold them accountable. Now, that puts you in a funny position because it's your first time, most likely, and you're not going to know what to think about or what's going to happen or what could go wrong. That's fine. Best thing you can do, my personal feedback, everyone, during the first couple of runs, you should be there all the time. Even if you have, which you should have, a third-party QC and everyone else with you, you need to look and be like logical about what might break. Oh man, I put everything on a ship and then I flew with some in the air and the plastic expanded and now the thing's broken when it lands. Not my fault. Wasn't in the agreement. You need to outline more than you ever think you're ever going to have to outline. I know people whose QC documentation is 200 pages long. You need to have photos showing this is wrong, this is right, like every single piece of every single step of the process. If you're not detail-oriented, hardware is probably not going to be fun. So you have to care about this stuff. Now, you put that into a couple of things, the manufacturing warranty and the sales agreement. Now, these are pieces of paper, again, not 100%. But if you have a relationship, they want that money. Because you put 30% down, hopefully not 50, but sometimes you have to. Usually it's 30 up front. They want the 70% on the other side. So if you have a piece of paper that says, I said I wanted this, you agreed and signed, and you gave me something different, they're going to do their best to fix it. I've never seen that be a problem. Just recognize one thing. If you get too high and mighty with your factory, and you think that they're willing to do anything you ask, and you can treat them badly or like be a jerk about this, well, you said that you weren't going to do, like I thought you would do it, I thought you would know, whatever attitude you want to give them, trust me, they need you, kinda. You need them, absolutely. Because at that point, once you've committed and you're getting products coming off the line, you need to ship that product. You have buyers. You have people that expect it, investors, whoever else, right? They have how many other customers? And you're probably doing a small volume. So the more you can be clear, in that documentation, the better. But don't stress out, guys. You're going to learn. Like I promise you, everyone will make mistakes. This is part of the game. You can't get it all right the first time. These are just basic tips and tricks that you can learn about. There's lots of sample documentation online. Every hardware founders, all the people that raise their hand, there are 4 or 5 people that have been through this. They'll probably show you their old documentation and how specific it has to be. Just learn. Pretty straightforward. Any questions on this piece, negotiation? I'm sure that's an interesting topic to most people. Like, what can you negotiate, what you can't? Anything? All right. Cool. Done with sourcing. Moria told me, said, it has to be deep. We're in Israel. It can't be salesy bullshit. It's gotta be deep.
It is. Okay.
All right, good. Nice. Check. Step 2. Let's make some shit. Cool? We're adding on 2 more. Production management and QC. Let's roll. Hardware development manufacturing process. This is what it is. This is probably one of my favorite parts. Anyone here come from the software world or digital world? Perfect. You're used to a reality where you can bend the world of ones and zeros. Good fucking luck in the world of physics, because that's not how it fucking works. And this is really important to know. This is a process. Now, I'm not saying that everything is linear. You can do certain things in parallel, but they are gates, hard gates, that if you skip and you do not do these stages, it will hurt you. It almost happens every time. I've never seen a team go, like, skip DVT, no big deal. Like, or I really didn't do this test, or I didn't do my jigs right and it's all good, or I didn't get the certification I needed, or like ... If you skip steps, I promise you hardware is the wrong game to do that in. Follow the process, go as fast as you can. The only thing you can do, and this is the problem because most people think they can fundraise their way out of this. Like I'm doing a deal right now where a guy has to ship, I think it's 9,000 pieces by December, but he's not done with R&D. I'm like, and he's like, yeah, but I've got $500,000. I'm like, I kind of don't give a shit, and neither does China. Like, your money doesn't matter. There's a process, and happy if you want to go do it by yourself. You're not putting my logo on it. Like, I'm not helping you, because the second you skip a step, this shit is going to go bad quickly. So recognize this is the way it is. Don't try to fight it. Lean into it. Plan. Get your anal retentive, like project planning mentality and very detail-oriented minds. Like, use that part of your brain. It's important. Use Gantt charts. They'll save your life. So this is the process, period. Production management. Some details you need to probably know if you don't already. Very simple. You just want to have a reasonable time frame and a high yield. That's it. Reasonable means reasonable. Not tomorrow and not in 2 years, because shit takes time to make. And the high yield part you want to do because guess what? You spent all this money. You don't want to skip stuff and then find out you're getting 60% yields and 40% defects. That's probably the first time you're going to see, oh shit, I skipped a step. You want to get high yields. And every product category has a different yield percentage. Some people can get up into like 2% defect or like 1%, like really good. A lot of teams are going to be sitting around that 3-5% range, and that's completely fine. Yep.
What about getting prototype first?
So getting a prototype, what do you mean?
Get one item, 2 items for the production.
Oh, absolutely. So the question is, why don't you get 1 or 2 prototypes before you do production? We do. So you go through first pull, second pull, third, like, you know, is it V0, 2, 3, however many revisions you need to get through, and then you get the gold sample. The gold sample is this perfect item, and it's everything you want, and you try it, and you test it, and you make your jigs. Your jigs are like these hacked together items that like press the button 5,000 or 10,000 times and like drop it 1,000,000 times and all this other stuff to make sure that it does what it's supposed to, or puts it in water or dust or whatever. So you need to make sure that you get a couple of products that are your gold sample before you go to production. 100,000% agree.
And it's different payment, or it's included in the down payment?
Oh, absolutely included. So when you make the 30% payment, that's included. Absolutely. They're not going to charge you on top of it. Like, that's 30% says, cool, let's cut tools. Let's start figuring out how to make it. Let's go through version 1, 2, 3, however many times. The more times you do it, I'll tell you this. If you're doing less than 2 revisions, I'm scared. We generally see 3 is the magic number. It can be more. Don't be scared. Recognize that you want to do it right. If you cut a corner right at the end, think about how much work you've done to get there. 2 years of work, 3 years of work, there's no reason to save a week. Spend the time, do another version. Cool, 30% standard. You might get hit with 50, it happens, but you're probably not gonna get 0. There's examples on both sides. It's very normal to take 30% up front. Very common, cool? Extra time, every founder I meet, I think we said this earlier, is so every person tells me, oh, I'm gonna be, in 6 months, and I immediately double it. The second you talk to me, I'm doubling your time frame. Now, I'd like to beat that time frame, but it's very likely you've skipped steps, your R&D is not done, you haven't thought through, you have a long lead time part that you're not telling me about, the supply chain is gonna dry up last minute because Chinese New Year is gonna come in, Apple's gonna buy everything, shit happens. Add extra time. Anyone ever done crowdfunding before? Oh, interesting. That's a very different dynamic in Israel than the West, than in America or Europe. So the reason I bring that up is every single time people have to push. So let's make it a B2B pilot, whoever buys your products, right? So every time you're going to delay is going to literally decrease confidence over and over and over. If you're going to not do it correct the first time, fine. Most people make mistakes. It happens. Do yourself a favor. Pull the Band-Aid off once. Punt the time frame 6 months, 8 months. Get that customer, whoever your customer is, to get their head around, oh man, like I was planning on this. Okay, fine, I'll give them one more chance. And then surprise and delight them and ship in 3 months. Don't like death by 1,000 cuts say 6 weeks, we're gonna ship in 3 months, we're gonna ship in 4 months, because that's what everyone does. It drives your backers or your customers nuts. Pull the Band-Aid off one time. Consistent communication, I think weekly is critical. Talking with your agent or factory every single week. Why not? Even if everything's good, nothing to do, cool, not a big deal. But don't wait 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. This is kind of my favorite part to visit the factory. You don't have to go all the time. I have founders that come 2 to 3 times in the entire process, and that's it. I would be weary or scared if you don't want to go ever. That seems like a bad idea to me. And might actually mean I don't want to take your business, just being honest. Because if you don't want to see it with your own eyes, that worries me. Now, we can send samples. We send samples and they take a couple weeks wherever they're going, and you check them out, you go, oh, take some notes, but now you're the cycle, it takes forever, right? It's like a week there, you look at it for a week back. You can't do iterations very quickly. And that's kind of one of the biggest benefits of China, is they move super fast. On the other side, when you are actually at the factory, here's a little pro tip, don't tell them you're coming. Tell them you're coming on Wednesday, you show up on Tuesday. That's the best. Because when you're there, and I promise you it's going to happen, everything's going to be perfect. There'll be someone waiting for you at the border. They're going to have tea ready, a place with water bottles. They're going to have everything really nice. Everyone's going to have their knits on and their clothes on, the anti-statics rooms, and all this. It's all going to look perfect. And then you leave. And who the hell knows what happens, right? So this is really important. You just go, oh, there's a cheaper flight earlier, so I decided to take it. Make some shit up. Show up off schedule. Promise. Important. Cool.
Question?
Yes, yes.
What about the other benefits, like having an engineer go there every day or stay in China for the entire duration?
Great questions. The question is, what about having an engineer staying in China the whole time, like every day? Great, awesome question. Our founders use Hong Kong as the home base because anyone that's been in China knows the internet sucks. Just saying, that's a real thing. It's gotten worse. In the 3.5 years I've lived there, it's gotten worse. It's harder and harder to find a VPN that works. So, if you really don't need to do Western work, sleep in the bunks, man. Live in the dorms. Go for it. Like, I went and played basketball at Foxconn with the workers. It was a good time. Like, do your thing. But if you need to be doing Western work, you need to be in Hong Kong. There's no way around. What's nice is a 45-minute cab drive or a bus, little mini bus. Super cheap. Like, really not a problem. Like, I think it's like $7 US or something to get from central Hong Kong to the border, like no problem. But here's the other side of the question. What value do you add after you go to the factory and you say, oh, but the button doesn't feel right. The click's not right. You know, the shape doesn't feel good, whatever else. So then you go the next day and you're like, hey, how's it going? I mean, just being honest, no offense, me included, you sitting and overseeing them, you can't add much value after you've told them what you want. You need to come in some frequency. We usually do once a week because most turn times and updates don't happen intraday. That's not really how it works. You're one of many clients. They have to queue it up. They have to make sure the right people are informed what to do. If you have a super small factory, maybe. But if you're dealing with tier 2, which I suggest, it's going to take about a week to make those iteration cycles. So chill in Hong Kong. Do your Western work. Do whatever you gotta do, and then pop back over. If you want to live in the dorm room, feel free. Don't be annoying. Don't be poking them every single day going, what are you doing, what are you doing, what are you doing? You don't know how they work. You don't know all the other priorities. You're gonna frustrate them badly. No offense, unless you're a manufacturing engineer and you know how to do that, totally different. Like, I think you could be more hands-on, but just recognize the value you provide. But that's a really solid question. Anything else? Yep.
There are things like, you develop an iPhone and you visit the factory as far as like the structure and mechanical equipment and you say, okay, that sucks, that shouldn't be that way. Any general stuff that you see that aren't that you categorize that factory as second grade or something.
So the question is, are there any obvious things that you can say, ooh, that's a bad factory? First, cleanliness, big one. Second, documentation is super critical. I personally like factories that work with countries I respect. Like, one of my favorite tricks is working with factories that service the Japanese audience. Super awesome, because they have a crazy high level they expect. Lots of documentation. Because I want to ask them, when things go wrong, show me how you figure it out. Because what usually happens in a factory is like, oh, it was a different shift worker. I don't know what happened. That's not a good answer for you, because you're the one carrying the bag. It's your responsibility. It's not theirs. So now they have to figure out what happened. If you don't have a good paper trail, how are you going to help them diagnose what happened? So I think documentation is critical. I think there's also just there's a feeling about it. Like, when you go to certain factories, you just get a bad feeling. Like, it might be the machines just look really old and wear and tear and all this other stuff. But I think quick tips, documentation, so you can actually have a conversation and watch what happened, is really important. Cleanliness, because I'm not joking to you. Like, you'll go to some factories on the off day, tricking them, showing up, and you might be really surprised how bad it can be. Like, small things, like, do they document where the razor goes on the box cutter? Like, one of my favorite factories documents every single razor in every single pack and every single razor cutter, because we don't want to open up a box one day and find out there's a razor in your packaging somewhere. It happens. They literally are that anal where they will track every single blade in every single thing to make sure that it's figured out where it is. You got to decide, right? Plenty more where that comes from, I'm sure. But
How do you check how they have Japanese clients?
one more time, sorry?
How do you see if they have Japanese clients? How do you
Oh, you just ask them who their customers are. Really simple. References, perfect, references, easy. Ask who they make stuff for. Make them show you. Don't walk into the lobby where you're going to see lots of cool products sitting in glass cases and think, oh, they must make these things. It's China, guys. Come on. Like, don't get tricked on the easy one. Like make them prove to you that they manufactured that product or what part they did of that product. Cool? Ask questions. Cool. Let's keep rolling. QC, step 7. We already talked about this. The last part is timely issue resolution. So we already talked about high yields, right? But now we're talking about timely issue resolution. Having people on ground, QC, people that know QC, is important. Now, you're the person buying. So it has to pass your standards. But there are standards for QC. There's literally a matrix that will tell you how often, out of, let's say, 10,000 pieces, there's standards that are globally accepted. Apple does the same thing. Samsung does the same thing. Like, Samsung blowing up phones, like, if you look at statistically how improbable that was, they probably passed every single standard. You can't look at every single phone. Like, the volume is impossible. They would never ship. So having to follow these and have timely issue resolution, someone on ground that knows what they're doing, plus you being there at least for every production run in the first couple of years. Even our teams that don't live in Asia, when they do another run or another run, they fly out. You need to be on ground for when you pull the trigger on production, because you are the client. You make the decision. You tell the QC and the factory what to do. Very hard to do overseas, because the problem is all the work you do building up to getting production greenlit, and you hit the big let's go button. When you do that, no matter how much work you've spent, I promise you, you will be demoralized at how fast they make your entire production run, because you took years and they took 3 days. Everyone thinks the R and the research and development side, that is the hard part. Everyone thinks design for manufacture, DFM, right? The designing for part takes forever. The manufacturing part takes about 3 days. It's the easiest part because you've tested and tested and tested. You have all the schematics, all the requirements documents, all the jigs. You've gone through all the process, like T1, T2, T0, 3. You've gone through all these. And then it's like, cool, we're trained. Ready to roll? Done. You're like, what? It took me years and it took them 3 days. You're like, are you kidding me? So make sure you're there. It won't take you very long, I promise. Okay, the defect list, really important. It'll keep changing over time. I promise you there'll be defects you can never imagine until you've done this before. It is impossible. I promise. I've never met anyone that says I got it right the first time, all of them. You got to be there. You got to go through the process. Multiple quality checks. This is really, really critical. We do online, not on the internet, on the line checks. You don't want to just find out way over here in the QC room, they start coming off in the hundreds or thousands, and you catch something. You're like, stop it, stop the line, stop the line. You get stop, and now you have 2,000 that something's wrong. You go back to the beginning of the line, and you're there. And you watch it, you're like, yep, that makes sense. Online inspect that step, online inspect that step, because you can catch stuff early, and then you have to go back and fix it. Do online and at the end, the final inspections, okay? Do both.
Is there
Yep.
is there anything specific about like that you have to pay more attention? Like for instance, plastic, motherboard, I don't know, cables, something specific that's more that you have to pay more attention in there?
So the question is there anything in particular you have to pay attention to? Like, generally speaking, it's by product category. So wearables have very different problems than, a device that sits in your home, like a connected home device, which is very different than maybe the lights. Is very different than an autonomous part of a car, like whatever it is, right? Like literally every product's going to be different. So so here's a good example. The part that you're the most worried about, start there. The part that you think is the most risky. The USB cable that you charge with, test some, but that seems like a waste of time, right? Like, if you buy like a super cheap USB cable and you're cutting corners there, test that shit. Like if you pay enough money and it's a supplier, because there aren't that many that literally there's just like a few guys that make all the cables. Very simple. You're probably gonna be fine. You test randomly. It's probably every 25 or 50 units, you test the cable, whatever else. Firmware, definitely have to check it. Anything like the certification, so dust, water, sweat, drop, blah, 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 blah. There's hundreds. All those things, you should have a jig. A jig, again, is kind of like this hacked together, very ugly usually looking device that tests things over and over again. So if you're promising it's waterproof and you don't test it enough, that'll be a problem. If you say that it's sweat proof and you don't try it, or drop proof from a certain ratio and everything or range, test those things. But then just make a list, right? Like you can't. I would try to test more than not at the beginning because you're going to find problems. Like test more often earlier, and then you start taking stuff off over time. Like okay, that never really happens. Like fair. Let's not spend time on that. Is there another question? Yep.
Follow-up question about that. You said firmware added to software. This is very specific field. Like if I have a connected device and I want to test that it is actually connecting, that's a whole other issue. Or there's an entire business logic running on the device. So
You set the whole thing up. What happens so the test is what do you test in the software, the firmware, the whole business logic, everything else. If you promise someone that this is going to work and you don't recreate that entire environment in your QC room, problem. Because then you're betting it's going to work. And you better know that it does work when you're doing it thousands of times. I've had this problem with one of my teams. Of course, because I don't know firmware well enough, didn't catch this stuff. They're the engineers. When they found out they messed something up, guess what they did? I hate that, it's such a bad story. So two things. They had a metal enclosure, and they realized that the Bluetooth was not getting out enough. Even though we had dialed the holes, we tested, it was all good. Quickly realized after shipping a couple thousand, shit, it's not good enough. So we had to go back, cut out the back of the entire device, and put it plastic, so it had enough permutation to get the signal out, right? Then on top of that, what happened? Crap, the standby life in the battery is real shit. It's draining in sleep mode really quickly. People are going to get it after it sits in the ship for 2 weeks, and they're going to be dead. Like we're shipping 5,000 of these things. What did we do? We literally took them into Hong Kong, into the office at this company, opened up 4,000 pieces or whatever it was, and then we got smart. They were doing it one by one. They realized they actually create a loader that could deploy 20 firmware simultaneously. And so we're realizing like, okay, well, we have to do this now. So we had to write new software to deploy manually quicker because you have to do it times thousands, right? So whatever environment you need to test, I highly recommend you test all of it. I just promise you, the thing you assume and go, oh, we've already used that, it's going to be fine, that will be the one. Anything else? Yep.
When you do the production manufacturing, what is like times to stop the production line to fix defects that you found?
The question is how often or how many times is it common to stop a production line if you find problems? The answer is as many damn times as you have to. Because what's the alternative? You're stuck with thousands. It totally depends. It usually depends on your planning. If you decided to skip steps, like I told you earlier, you're going to stop the line a lot more. And they might end up canceling production because the factory has that decision. They're going to say, this is crazy. What the fuck? And you've been stopping and starting, stopping and starting, stopping and starting. Like, this doesn't make sense. And you want to keep doing this the next day. They're doing the math and the profit margin going, I can keep dealing with this crazy guy, or I can stop, put some other people's stuff on the line, and make money tomorrow morning. Fuck that. And they're going to say, cool, go deal with your shit. I'm going to go make money tomorrow morning. And usually you have lines teed up for 3 days, 5 days, 7 days, because it takes that long to do it. If you mess up, not saying, like, I mean, this is all planning, right? It's all it is, planning and testing. You've done T0, 1, 2, got your golden sample, test the golden samples, you made your jigs, things should be fine. Like, it's the nice part about physical is it doesn't magically change. If it worked the first few times, it's super likely it's going to work again. Now, things can happen, but it won't be like constant stopping the line if you actually did do the work. It shouldn't happen. It doesn't happen for us very often at all. So it's just a planning conversation. I don't know if there's a common range, but just remember the alternative is they're going to make money tomorrow morning without you. Now, you'll get back on the line one day, right? But now you got to regain the confidence. Anything else? Cool. Anything else important here? Yeah, here we go. So QC companies, passing on those defects or things you learn. This is critical. Now, I have this happen every single time. People will pay us to help do with manufacturing. They'll say, oh, well, do we really need QC? Like, you must be kidding, right? Like, the final step, the last piece. You want to save a couple $1,000 now? You must be joking. Spend money on QC. Even our teams that are on their 4th, 5th, 6th runs, still paying for QC. The alternative is you need to have a team of people that know it just as well as they do, and you have to do it. Not doing it is a really bad option.
Do they have some ability? Do they have some ability between the companies?
Do they have what abilities?
Liability.
Oh, liabilities. Cool. Question is, do the QC companies have liability? It would be hard to enforce. Now, but you're there with them, right? Like, you're watching it. Like, whenever we go, you see them lining up all the phones, pairing everything, running the software tests, the jigs are running. Like, they're doing what you're supposed to do, right? Plus, they do have a brand that's important to them, more than probably some tier 3 factory. QC companies get used often. And if they were really messing up the standards, that would probably be a problem for their business model. So using a QC company that people know about or have references, we're probably going to be fine. Chapter 2 almost closed. Are we good? We just made shit. You feeling good? All right. Okay, this is a timeline. I'm not going to really go over this too much. This is actually probably the ugliest slide I've ever seen. Okay, so this is important. Just read a little bit. Let's go through some really, really quick ones. So you order a sample. You want to make some changes. You approve a sample. You sign the agreement. You place an order. There's 45-day lead time because they have other stuff that they're producing. You then have to do QC to examine. You have to redo something. That happens. Got to fix some stuff. You make this deposit for the upside production. You QC, and you want to actually, these are just an example of a watch company. Then you want to actually transport that content, all the supplies, the components you ordered, 45-day lead time, to the factory to be made, right? See, QC, cool, this is actually really important. QC your supply. That's really important. We had this happen. Someone was making watches, and they ordered, not Gorilla Glass, the sapphire, just like glass. I don't know if I should tell the story. So it's actually got really negative. So probably a good example. So this guy ordered $20,000 of sapphire glass. Cool? Basic. If he had not looked at that glass that he ordered, the factory ordered for him, before they went to production, he would have been in deep trouble. He looked at the glass, thank goodness. Guess what? Wasn't sapphire glass. It was like 20%-ish, like kind of this mixed bullshit, right? So he went to the Laobon and said, hey, what the fuck? He said, well, you didn't write it down. You didn't tell me. Like, what are you talking about? I said I need sapphire glass. Oh, show me where. Shit. $20,000. He goes, you got to buy new sapphire glass. I say, I'm not paying for it. I told you to buy this. You didn't buy the right stuff. What's going to happen now? Where's the leverage in that conversation? Oh, you need to make shit. They've got other stuff to do. It got kind of negative. I'm not going to put that on camera, but it ended up being, he got it figured out. What did he do? Paid. $20,000 down the drain. Tough lesson. But it happens. So QC the components, and then QC on the line, and then QC the final inspection. Cool? Always be QCing. That should be like the ABCs. ABQC. There you go. New one. Just made that up. So this is a sample. Literally, you can find anyone that you've ever talked to. Google this. I promise you there's tons. The reason I show these very long timelines and all these small steps is that you just need to know that it needs to be a detail-oriented process. There is a process. You can't skip steps. Do the work. Okay, last point, chapter 3. You guys with me? We okay? Last part. Okay, distribution. Now you get to make some money. Well, maybe. We'll see. Now that you've made it, you got to get it places. We have a product. We got to get to buyers. How do we do that? Let's add the final 3 pieces: shipping and payment, distribution, and then rinse and repeat. Because now you're making money. You can take orders all the time. Awesome. Cool? Let's go. Delivery. Here's production. Now we have to get the packaging booked in, right? Got to get the packaging figured out. And now some of your packaging might be B2B, but you still have to package it. It might just be ugly cardboard, and that's fine. But you got to get it somewhere in a box. You have to go through the packaging documents, the shipping documents, confirm the documents, confirm the shipment, have the notices. You got to deliver the goods, put them in warehouses, or someone's going to put it in warehouses, ship it, bill of ladings, receive goods. Lots of steps, right? Don't you, when you order something, you just call DHL. Not how it works. There's lots more steps. Now, this also happens to be called 3PL, third-party logistics. I don't know anyone that tries to do this shit themselves as a startup. This is pay this to go away. Cool? No value in this. No one cares. Just get me my products. Now, you can find different groups. Happy to give you the whole list. They keep coming. Some are good, some are bad. They all kind of have something I don't like. But you got to get stuff somewhere. Generally, again, what you pay is what you get. I know lots of people that will promise you $1.50 a unit, $2 a unit. Have fun when that shit gets stuck in customs or falls off the ship or whatever happens, because that does happen. You pay for what you get. Cool? Happy to give you, like, you don't want to do this stuff. Yep.
Talk about the delivery, reminded me something about the regulations. We didn't speak about it. What in your opinion is better, to do the regulation in China or back home?
You said regulation. Do you mean certification?
FCCC.
Certification, perfect. So the question is, where do you do the certifications? Everyone I know does certifications in China or across in Hong Kong. Very simple. Because there's no reason to do it over. You can do it. You absolutely can. But these are very basic. Like, these are not hard things to do. Like, very few things other than FDA, which is a nightmare. Like, everything other than that, there's a house somewhere, there's a group in Shenzhen or Dongguan or Hong Kong that does this all damn day. Now, here's a trick. If you work with a factory that you know has the testing facilities in-house, awesome. They will not certify you because it's illegal to do that. So if you have a factory and you're doing, let's just use some sort of like audio, like CE or FCC, whatever, right? And they say, okay, we're going to test it here. If they say, we'll certify it for you, red flag. Immediately. The factory that makes your product cannot also certify it. Has to be a third party. Do not fall prey to that trick. Now, what's nice about it though, here's how certification works. I want to get this certified. I'm actually going to look. There's probably stuff on here, like certifications on here somewhere. So this is certified, and I need to test this product and get it certified. Cool. What happens? I send it, maybe a city over. They test it. Got problems. Send it back to me and say, you have problems. They aren't going to tell you how to fix it. They just say, it failed for the following reasons. Shit. So now you sit with your factory. It failed. Why? Now we got to reverse engineer what happened. We think we fixed it. Send it back. Test it. Send it back. Up. One more thing failed. Fuck. Doing that overseas is a really bad decision. Being nearby is a really smart decision. Now, pro tip again, working with a factory, if there's a really weird certification that you use, not FCC, CE, all that shit's super simple. Like everyone does. ISO, all these people have. This is very, very simple. Now, wait. If you can find a factory that also has the rigs or the testing facilities for you to try, you can learn why it's going to break before you send it. They won't certify it, but you can save yourself a shit ton of time and money. I love those factories. Because then you're testing what will break or why it will get X'd on certification, and when you send it, you have a much higher probability that it'll pass the first time.
But the factory will bullshit you because they want to throw out the product as fast as possible from the production line.
So the question is, the factory might BS you because they want to ship the product as fast as possible. Not true. after they've been through that for so long, if that's what they're doing to you, you do not have a real relationship with them. You fuck something up. This is really important because if they want to burn you now, they are not betting on a startup for order run number 1, I promise. They need number 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 20, right? So if they're going to burn you right at the last mile of production run 1, I promise you there's not enough margin for them to do that. That'd be really short-sighted, and factories know how to make money. We had another question? Cool, good. All right, let's keep going. Payment. The reason I'm showing you this stuff is because you guys need to know this is a part of the process. You won't manage a lot of this. Although payment, you sure as hell know how it works, because this is how you make your money. And you gotta figure out how long is your money gonna be tied up and how and where. Order confirmation. Now, this is generally gonna be a consumer product or a B2B2C product. Pure B2B is based on the terms you have with the customer. It could be custom. So, order confirmation, we're good. Deposit, letter of credit. Sales order and purchase order, you receive the deposit or the letter of credit. Now, we gotta start the production, and then you settle the PO. Now, this is if you're getting financing. I really hope you guys do this if possible. Try to get a financing run or get someone to pay for your production or give you terms, because if you use your equity and fundraise against inventory, bad use of equity. Now, sometimes you have to. You can't always get away with this. We will do this. We call this debt financing or trade financing or triangulated financing, all the same thing. We are very happy to do that for teams that work with our factories because we know the factory. No problem. If you have Best Buy buying your stuff and you're using my factories, cool, I'm good. I'll finance that. Easy. Because the banks, as a startup, won't touch you. Just like they won't touch me if I have no background. I'm going to be the buck, right? Like I have to stop the money at the end going, I'm personally liable. That's fine. But if you need to go get 5,000, 10,000 pieces made and your BOM is 25, 50, $100, like it gets expensive really quickly. So this is going to be using the most efficient way of doing it. What you might end up doing is just paying for all of it. So this is just the better way to do it. So a purchase order is going to come from that Best Buy, Apple, Target, whoever you're selling to, and you need 2 people. The person giving you the money, the person manufacturing the product. That's it. But it has to be triangulated. This might be a little too complicated on the finance side, but just trust me, this is how it works. Otherwise, you just pay it, which is fine, but then your money's all tied up. You'd rather pay a percentage of interest and have money in your pocket than have it all sitting in someone else's bank account and you can't use it. Because as a hardware startup, you need it. So you send the listing, the packaging and list invoice, you settle the balance, the balance is received, and then the whole PO is done, goods are delivered. So it's sort of like a timing thing. It's usually net 45, net 90, whatever. You probably don't want to be carrying this for longer than that. That's a lot of time, and the interest rates are high for this kind of stuff. And also know this. It's not impossible, but be very, very wary if someone is willing to finance inventory that you hold on hand in a warehouse versus goes to a qualified buyer, like a business like Oracle or Cisco is buying your shit. Awesome. If it's going to sit in a warehouse or in your office and someone's willing to finance that, those terms are going to be terrible. There's something going on.
Can you explain again?
Sure. So I need to buy 10,000 of these because Best Buy wants them. Cool. I'm willing, as a bank, which we do trade financing, I'll finance that, no problem. Use my factories. I know Best Buy, no problem. Then you say, I want to buy 5,000 because I think people are going to want them one day. Bad. Because no one's going to settle that payment. You have to sell these 5,000 pieces to pay me back. So there's going to be a lot of shit going on in the background for me to make sure I'm going to get my money back. There's a lot of strings attached that, trust me, they're there somewhere. So now I've heard this. It's a new creative financing model that's coming out, and I don't think it's always bad. I heard this one deal in San Francisco where these guys have a specialty in electronics and a specialty in fabrics or textiles. So they feel like they have the ability to offload inventory. They're betting on themselves. What they do is they come to you and they say, I think it's actually kind of a cool model. They come to you and say, I understand you can't actually pay for this. No big deal. Go ahead and make your price. I'm going to take 50% of the profits and you're going to take 50% of the profits. That's a steep number, right? But you don't know because you don't have a buyer yet, if they even want it. So it's 50% of something you don't have yet. Now, on the other hand, you have X amount of time. Usually it's about a year to sell the inventory. If you can't move the inventory, they get to legally take it and they'll offload it because they have channels that will buy that shit. Now, they wouldn't do it for washing machines because they don't have buyers that want washing machines. But if they have gadgets or clothes, they have buyers. And they feel comfortable that if you can't make it happen, then no big deal. I'll take it and I'll sell it. Now that's a pretty sweet deal, in my opinion, because it's an order that you might not be able to finance yourself. So just be wary. I think that's going to be more and more creative things. Don't say no to it, but just think through it. Like, are you comfortable with those terms? Cool. We're almost done, guys. Promise. Okay. Shipping and payment. The whole goal is to have no big surprises and your products show up intact. The intact part is an important qualifier of this conversation. That they don't fall off the boat, that they don't randomly disappear, they don't get stuck in customs, all these things. Now, you don't want to trust the supplier to manage the export packaging. This is probably too detailed at this point. This is a shipping agent. So use a shipping agent, again, like a QC agent. 3PL, third-party logistics. These are partners, very, very transactional guys. Like in our portfolio, like over 50 hardware companies now, we just pass that shit back and forth. Like these guys suck now, switch. You know, they're not like your factory. Your factory you need a relationship with. Your 3PL guys, whoever is good enough at a good enough price, that shit happens normally. Like this is not like a deep relationship you need with like DHL or FedEx.
What about product packaging? Can I reach to a level like Anchor or Xiaomi for producing products?
So is the question more about the quality of your packaging?
Yeah.
Very good question. So question is, can you reach a super high level of your packaging? Or maybe the question should be, should you? So some of our teams use the same groups that Apple use. I think that's a waste of money, whatever. Like their choice, spending $4 on packaging, like, okay. Depends on your product, right? Then there's people that are shipping to buyers, like backers on crowdfunding, whatever else. Send it in a literal cardboard box with a smiley note on it saying thanks. It's such a waste of time. It doesn't make sense. Amazon, when you buy stuff at Amazon, what does it look like? The products they used to make come in very cardboard boxes, really ugly, right? Now, if you're buying retail and you're making for retail, then it's got to look nice. No way around it. Now, you have to decide what that means for your buyer, how much people will assign value depending on your price point, how you've positioned yourself. If it's a premium product and it looks like shit in the packaging, that doesn't make sense, right? Trying to make stuff like Apple as a startup is a waste of time. Your choice, all good. This is probably more important when it comes to packaging because this will waste a shit ton of money. Anyone know what FCL? Or anyone knows FCL versus LCL? Anybody? So full container load versus less than container load. This is critical. There's actually a startup in Israel I saw in Jerusalem that's trying to make this more efficient for people. I'm excited about this idea. So if you make a package and it's not super efficient in terms of its use of space, you can't get as many in a crate, right? Like you can't get as much in the container. So now you have to buy a second container. And the problem with containers, they're not cheap. And it's really expensive if you're using parts of containers because now you have to find someone else to buy the other part of your container. And guess what? They don't give a shit. There's a massive inefficiency in that supply chain. You can do air freight if you want to fly it in the air. It's going to be really expensive. Better to get on a boat. And boats are super efficient, usually about 2 weeks, not a problem. But if you make your packaging with a lot of wasted space, you are going to pay big time. It will add to your cost overall and decrease your profit at the last moment where you're not thinking. Because then you're going to get it all into a container and go, oh, if we just put it to the left or find a way to hide it and make it 2 layers, shit. And you're going to now have that problem times 5,000. It's going to cost real cash. Work with a design house that makes packaging that thinks like that. Ask them to be efficient and how they are going to handle it, how many can they get into a container. Ask that question during the process. Don't be surprised by that. Cool, guys, we're almost there. We're almost there. Okay, distribution strategy. Global price parity. Has anyone been burned on this before? Global price parity is really simple. Guess what? The euro takes a dive. What does Apple do? Charge you more in Europe, right? You should not have an incentive for people to be shipping your products across borders because it's cheaper somewhere else. Gotta inspect that stuff. You do not want some random dude who's distributing your stuff doing it at a discount. Problem. Because then everyone, if you're doing well, is going to find a way to figure out the inefficiency in that system and cross-sell you across borders. There's some things you can't control every single piece. Assume it's going to happen. Do everything in your power to try to fight this. Pick a price point that will work in all the markets you want to sell. Do everything in your power to, when you're negotiating, they're going to negotiate you. Oh, but I want a little better price. Like, oh, my buyers are in Czechoslovakia and they need a little better price. No, one price around the whole planet. Got it? So consistent POs, forecastable growth. Like this is just stuff that when you're using distributors, like big buyers, and they could be corporates. They don't have to be like retailers. They just want basic consistency using the same process. You don't want to change your PO system over and over again. You want to have it be the same thing as many times as often. You don't want to change stuff too often. The one thing that we talk about China, this is something that probably everyone thinks about, is China's a big market. So maybe you guys don't think. In America, for whatever reason, people think, well, can't I ship to China? Shouldn't I be targeting China? Not obvious as a strategy. Doable, not obvious. This is important. China is not one country. The tier 1 cities like BSG, Beijing, Shanghai, Guangzhou, they act like New York City and London. Tier 2 cities like Xiamen or Hangzhou or other cities, they act like a completely different country. And tier 3 cities act like the wild, wild west. You could be in Africa. It's very different. So you can't target China. You would target BSG or tier 1 cities or just one city. Just target Beijing or just target Shanghai or just target Guangzhou. Easy. Just don't think of it like it's one country. It's not. I think this is really important. Picking markets one focus at a time. It's very hard to scale as a startup to multiple countries simultaneously. You have to do it quickly, but not maybe all at once. So you might start with US or Western Europe or Israel, and then you'll quickly, maybe within 6 months, once the defects are broken out, you figure out how to handle the customer needs, whatever else. Localization of languages and stuff like that, that's pretty easy. The really hard part is when you try to handle too many import-export, too many retailers, too many customers in language. Usually it's customer support's your problem because they're messaging you in languages you don't have on staff. That's a problem. And they're not going to speak your language, they speak their language. So not to say that you shouldn't be going to other markets quickly, but all at once is probably a bad strategy. Not saying you can't, go for it. It just makes it harder. Yep.
Is there anything special in selling on Amazon, for example?
So the question is there anything...
What is Amazon, for example?
Is there pro or con Amazon? Yes or no?
Is there something special in selling on Amazon?
Okay, so tips and tricks for Amazon. Good example. So Amazon, yes, absolutely. They pay a really good margin. They are very nice to startups. They actually have a whole program called Launchpad that you should be working with. Just so you know, if you use Amazon and you're doing well, just so you know, there's another level that you might not know about. So make sure to try to get to the next level quickly and get the right reps that are going to help you even more. You'll get in. Everyone that wants to sell shit will get in, but you will not get the top tier level until later. So try to get there. Reviews, critical, and manage it just like your store. Manage it like the App Store reviews, everything. Manage your Amazon page. It's probably more important than your own web store. Very important. Now, it's not the be-all, end-all, but every one of our teams uses that platform. It's very powerful. They have great support. I mean, it's Amazon, right? Amazon's badass. So use them, learn from them. They have great third-party support, good training people, good community, solid choice. Not the only choice, but solid. Cool? Yep.
Do you have any high-level tips for expanding to new markets, to new countries? So, for example, if you want to expand to Russia now, and we don't know anything about tax or whatever other considerations that we need.
So the question is, any tips or tricks about expanding to other countries? Now, this is a different talk I give, but I'll give you a quick summary of this. So if you're going to go to a country that you don't feel comfortable with, what's the best way to do that? Any feelings? Thoughts?
Find someone. Find a local.
With a friend.
Local with a friend? Nope. What else? Oh, that's the word, distributor. So what's a distributor? A distributor is a middleman that knows that market, that has incentive to sell your product, service, train sales reps, make sure that product sells as much as they possibly can because they're going to make money. Now, I understand an investor in the room. I know how this works. Well, you're going to make less because you have a middleman. Yep, true. Or you're not going to sell shit in that market. Really hard. You need to make sure that you incentivize a third-party distributor. They're all over the world. Trust me. If you go launch a website or crowdfunding, they will hunt you. Most of our teams have 200 or 300 distributors that reach out. 90% are bullshit, just so you know. But fair enough. There's people, I want to rep your product to my country. You're going to get a lot of that inbound request. Stop listening to it. Put it in a Google Sheet. Sit on it until you actually have retail samples at the end of production. Don't listen to it. It's a distraction. They are not going to pay you money up front. I promise. Now, distributors, incentives. My favorite quote here is Sonny from Misfit. He said this. He went to Russia. Love that because it seems very odd. But Fitbit, one of his competitors, Jawbone, wasn't there. Interesting. So you're competing on brand, right? Guess what? You find a market that you can go into and your competitors aren't there. You get to build a brand in a country your competitors aren't in yet. Doesn't suck. So he did it at a very low margin, but then think about that. Low margin doesn't mean no money. It's not negative, it's cash. There is profit in it. And what are you doing by going into a market that your competitors aren't in or other places? You are learning at a profit or even break even. You're building a brand in a country your competitors aren't in, and you're learning what it takes to scale a physical products business, which is important. Because you can't scale just doing direct-to-consumer online as fast as you can in the retail world. You need both. Now, one fun tip on this, localization. Has anyone ever done localization before? Localization, really simple. Generally just language. Try to make your distributor do it. Sonny has a funny story because his distributor, really random, because he was given a great deal, didn't want to write the Russian language books because you have to go translate everything from English. So he said, cool, fuck that. I'm going to have a Chinese guy write the Russian because I don't care. And so he had a guy in China write the Russian. Guess what? It wasn't that good. And so when it got to Russia, it was funny because it was kind of bad. And guess what happened? People didn't care. The media loved it, wrote about it. He sold more. So what did he do? He then fixed it. The distributor was like, oh, God, fine, I'll do it. Doesn't matter. They're both making more money. So don't overthink localization. Shit's not perfect all the time. It's okay. But one thing that you need to do is get comfortable with the margin game. Think about a salesperson who's going to say, I'm going to take a country off the list that you don't have to deal with. You don't understand it. You don't understand the language. It's going to be hard. I'm going to take money. My opinion, and most people I know in retail, the opinion is whatever they ask for, give them more. The last thing you want them to do is be cutting corners. You want them to make money, even if you're making less profit, because you'll make it up later. You'll get actually economies of scale in the actual manufacturing then, if you're putting more and more orders in, so you'll get profit somewhere else. Or you'll take the learnings and go to another country. So distributors are your best friends, and you can swap them. You don't have to pick the first one and be a winner. You can go through 2 or 3 or 4, that's fine. No big deal. But you need to be comfortable with distribution partners. You have to. Cool? All right. Let's see, what else do we have here? Oh, actually, this is my favorite one. Who was I talking to earlier about OEM, ODM products? Someone in here. This is really fun. So you guys remember the watch I told you about? The English teacher is making 20 million top line a year? If you are interested in learning about physical products, you do not have to swing for the fences, sorry, American analogy baseball, that you do not have to hit a home run in your first time doing this. Here is a cheap and easy way, easy is the wrong word, less hard way to learn about how the physical world works and make money at the same time. We call them white label, Shanghai, whatever you want. You find a product in China that you like. Fun question. Who's ever heard of Skull Candy? Okay, good to know. Guess what? They used to be the #1 earphone company on earth. #1. Not after. For a long time, they were #1. What do you think they did? How'd they do that? They went to China. They found some very interesting, cool-looking earphones. They said, I want them in a different color, put my logo on it, and I'm not going to go try to sell it at Target and Best Buy. I'm going to sell it at surf shops and skate shops and snowboard shops. New distribution strategy, no technology. They became the #1 global company in headphones without changing their own technology, without making their own technology. Now, eventually they started doing it, but for the first few years, OEM products. Put my logo on it, change the colors, I'll sell it to places other people aren't paying attention. Boom, massive company. Doesn't suck, right? You learn about the physical world with someone else's technology. Now, all the engineer founders, I know that sucks because you're like, oh, but I want to make stuff. Fair enough. But this is the challenge, right? They get to learn. I have another guy, the translator, I told you about, the hearable translator that I'm getting shipped in a couple of weeks. This guy's a UK, see you, nice to meet you, is a UK music producer. This guy told me this whole pitch, and I'm thinking to myself, how in the hell have you been doing this R&D? It was profound technology. And then he told me, he goes, oh, I forgot to tell you, I sold a waterproof Bluetooth speaker, and I sold 1 million units. I go, oh. So he made a shit ton of money selling an off-the-shelf product in China, just being better at sales and marketing, made a crap ton of money that he then invested in building real R&D, hiring real engineers to do what he really wanted to do. But what happened in the meantime? He learned how to deal with the physical world. All the stuff I taught you, he now knows. Yep.
What about royalties in this case?
That's a question about royalties. So OEM, 0 royalties. None. Every single factory in China If you want to buy it from them at a price, mark it up and resell it and change the color, put your logo on it, no one's going to say no to you. Absolutely not. They want to sell volume. Like we're doing like 500,000 iBeacons a month with this one company. It's crazy. They don't give a shit. They're selling money. Like, you want to buy more? You want to buy more? Absolutely. Now, the reason I bring that up is when you're young and vulnerable, it doesn't suck to make money. It doesn't suck to learn on someone else's back. Like, now this is also even connected technologies. You can make products that don't have electronics. There are plenty of problems that need to be solved in the world that you can learn about the physical world, and then guess what? No offense. Same with me. You don't have to come to people like me. You don't need the money, because then you go, I've already made money. You actually know how this works. So I highly recommend this. Actually, if you're interested in that, the Enter China community is a really good group. A lot of people do this. And it's okay. Like, you're making $600,000, $700,000, $800,000 a year. Not bad. You know, you're making a couple $1 million a year. Not bad. Now you're making tens of millions. Like, it's nice just to have the independence to understand how the physical world works, which most of us are very disconnected from. Me too, or used to be. And then actually learn at a profit. It's not that bad. There are problems to be an IoT business. I get it. We deal with it every day. For 3 years, we've been in the trenches with all of our founders dealing with every single nuanced problem there is. It's okay. We believe, as I'm sure a lot of you believe, the physical world will become connected. And that's going to do a lot for the humanity. Our internal mission statement, we don't put it anywhere, but I'll tell you, is our mission statement is we have to unlock the world's data so we can then improve our lives. Because without the data that comes from sensors and physical things, we are guessing. And that sucks. So our internal job is we just want to speed up physical innovation, whatever that is. And getting you guys to sell offline products that gives you the money to then go reinvent the world the way you want to is a great solution. Or swinging for the fences, you want to make a connected product right now? Absolutely, go for it. We'd love to help. It's up to you. But it's hard, but there's a lot of, for me, and I'm sure a lot of you that are here, it's very motivating to do something hard. And once you learn how the physical world works, it's like this magic box that gets opened and you start learning. You now know everything in this room, every chair, the tiles, the ceiling, the pipes, the wall tiles, the books, everything was made somewhere and had to get shipped to this door. Everything went through this system. And those of you that haven't done it, it's really fun to learn how it works. It's a good time. And you can also make some money. So this is the shameless plug. We do these things. We cover, doesn't really matter. We help founders, you know that. These are the resource reminders. I'm happy to send this out, really simple. Also, it always changes, it keeps getting updated. And we want to help. Thank you for having me.
That was good. Like, I'm that close to found a new company now. Again, like I'm that close to it.
Is it too deep or deep enough?
I
Just
think.
right, just
What
right?
do you think, guys?
Just
Was it
right?
deep enough?
Yeah.
That was a good one. Hardware is a hard game, but it's an amazing game. Now, here are my notes from this talk. It's a knowledge game, okay? And I agree with everything Bay said. Unlike software, you can't do one step and saying to yourself, okay, I'll figure it out while on my way to the next one. No. Every step of the road has to be like in your mind from day one. You know not only the goal, you know how to get there. Super important. Second thing, this is a team game. When we talk about hardware, so unlike software, it's not only about white people in like fancy shirts, okay, that cost them like too much, but has to look like it costs $2. But this is another talk. It's not everyone sit in like nice offices with neon lights. Okay, we talk about like a whole ecosystem, and you have to make everyone trust what you do and to work with people that you trust and to respect them. And I think this is why hardware is not only challenging, this is why it's amazing and it's rewarding, because you create something that truly connects with other people. It's not only the technology connect with other people, like you are part of an ecosystem. And third but not least, this is a game of passion, okay? I've spent a lot of time of my life hating Chinese, but thanking them from, seriously, the deep of my heart for taking this road with me. Because I can promise you that there is nothing more rewarding than seeing someone taking off your product off from the shelf and going to the register and paying for that. This is amazing. And when we talk about product management is a challenge. Product management for hardware, super challenging. IoT is crazy, crazy hard, but it's fucking awesome. Thank you very much, Bay, for this great talk. Our two lovely Eyals, Eyal Daniel on the camera. Thank you very much. Eyal Dickman, our video guy. Thank you very much for joining us. You may think that this night is over, but no, because now it's the schmoozing time, and you need to figure out who in this place is doing crazy thing that you want to join them maybe tomorrow, or you can help them, or maybe they have a question for something you solved out a month ago. So please network, connect, talk to each other. My name is Moria Cassis. This is Product of Things, and I'm looking forward to see you again in a month. Thank you.